Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I think I did it. I think I may have cracked the code. It's crazy because all of this seems to be so glaringly true, but I haven't heard anyone talking about most of any of this yet in relation to Pokemon. And I listen to a lot of videos about the lore of Pokemon. I've searched the web as widely as I can, and I did not find one source that has made the new connections I am putting forth in these videos. I've even begun wondering if others have actually discovered this information as well, but it's not the most kid-friendly content without controversy, so maybe they have chosen not to share it with their audience. Not sure. And if you do know anyone else who is talking about this, please post a link for us in the comments so everyone can learn from that too. But someone has to be the first to say it, so today I'm going to share with you my first YouTube style video ever that I made as quickly as possible in the hopes that we can get as many people to know about this as possible, and so that even more truths can be unveiled as we collaborate on this worldwide web together. Before we jump in, know that this video contains the first and second parts of a longer video that I will be releasing soon, so this is not the complete theory I will be presenting. But let me know if you think I'm onto something in the comments, or if you think I'm not. Give the video a like if you want to help spread the word, and subscribe with notifications turned on if you want to be alerted as soon as the next part of this series comes out. With that being said, let's get into it. Alright, so, as many Poke theorists know, there is a multiverse theory that has existed since the beginning of the Pokemon franchise, and almost everything in Pokemon is based on or inspired by something in our real world of Earth. This is also true for Heath, and I believe I have discovered some historical figures that the character was inspired by. Much like the imagined Pokemon of Heath's Scarlet book is based on 3 legendary Pokemon combined, Suicune, Entei, and Raikou, Heath is also based on an amalgamation of different historical figures from our real-life Earth. This information is really a gateway, entry point, or portal to so much more. So get ready for a rabbit hole. The main sources I will be using in this video of part 1 and 2 are from the games themselves. Heath's Scarlet book, The Missing Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, and this crazy Russian documentary about He Who Shall Not Be Named, with another little red book. Now, I know these sources are very unreliable. In fact, a lot of what I'm going to be showing is considered esoteric, occult, paranormal, pseudoscience, mythical, and or just flat out fake news. But those are exactly the themes that show up all throughout the story and the lore of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as referenced many times throughout the games. Also, whether or not any of this information is true, it is out there, published in books, online, connected to these historical figures, and seemingly very obviously referenced by these incredibly complex Pokemon games that are supposed to be made for kids. Speaking of, this video does get a bit dark at times, but I'll do my best to keep it fun, light, and fairy as much as I can, while still being respectful and having reverence for all of the people negatively affected by these stories. Okay, part 1. Admiral Richard E. Byrd. He was a highly respected and awarded admiral who was institutionally funded by the New York Times, and later by the United States Navy, to go on a 6 to 8 month expedition to a dangerous location, Antarctica, with his beloved dog, Igloo, supposedly in order to do research and set up bases, all under the name Operation High Jump. But some believe he was also there to find a secret hidden treasure. During his time at the base, he kept a journal. He also supposedly went missing in a short-range airplane for 3 hours without running out of fuel. The expedition was cut short and abandoned after just 40 days, supposedly due to weather conditions, and afterwards Admiral Richard E. Byrd warned in an interview that we should be prepared for attacks from flying vehicles coming from the poles. The government confiscated his journals and classified Operation High Jump as top secret with threats of arrest and imprisonment, so Admiral Richard E. Byrd never spoke of it again. However, after his death, his son published The Missing Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd. The book has a lot of extravagant claims, which many people believe to be false, going as far as to call the whole book a hoax and not really written by the Admiral himself. Although, if you read into the missing diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, you'll find many details continue to overlap with Heath's story. I'll place the actual pages from the missing diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd on the left of the screen and continue showing its connections to the games on the right. And yes, these are the actual pages of the book. They look crude like this. We start the story of the Admiral's flight to the Arctic on February 19th, 1947, which immediately brings to mind the airplane aspect of the box Legendary's designs, and the opening sequence of the games with Koraidon or Miraidon crashing.
Radio check with base camp. All is well and radio reception is normal.
Later in his flight, his equipment starts to glitch and malfunction. The first unusual sighting is mentioned to be of mountains. After crossing over the mountains, he encounters a valley or crater-like depression where there appears to be an abnormal, out-of-place, lush, green valley in the middle of the North Pole. The Admiral writes that,
"The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore."
Admiral Richard E. Byrd then writes,
"We spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet, there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp."
A mammoth? Yeah, crazy, right? A city can now be seen ahead of them, and radiant, disc-shaped aircrafts approach the Admiral. Disc-shaped? The aircrafts also have swastikas on them. And the beings inside of them are able to take control of the Admiral's vehicle and technology. Now, the Admiral has a better view of the city and describes it as
a large shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of color. It moves us toward the glowing city. The city seems to be made of a crystal material.
The intelligent beings then bring the Admiral an unknown delicious beverage and brings him into an elevator where they descend. Upon exiting, they are in a long hallway lit by rose-colored light that emanates from the walls themselves. There's an inscription that the Admiral cannot read, and here's where he encounters the Master. There's more talk of the coloration that fills the room completely, and the Master tells him that he was allowed to enter because he is of noble character and well known on the surface world. He also says,
"Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugel Rats, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on, you see. We have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy."
Well, there it is. That seems pretty relevant to a Pokémon game coming out of Japan. It is revealed that these beings' culture and science is many thousands of years beyond that of the human race, and that there are those among humans who would destroy our very world rather than relinquish their power. A great storm is coming that will rage on until every flower of our culture is trampled, and our recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come. But all is not lost, because the Master also says,
"We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures."
Legendary treasures. The Admiral then even states that the whole experience feels like a dream, but is in fact reality. With this, the diary comes to a closing statement that says,
"Now, I seem to sense the long night coming on, and this secret will not die with me. But as all truth shall, it will triumph, and so it shall. This can be the only hope for mankind. I have seen the truth, and it has quickened my spirit and set me free. I have done my duty toward the monstrous military-industrial complex. Now, the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in this light. For I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown."
So the story sadly ends with his death, a parallel to many of these other stories that we'll also be reviewing. There's also this illustration of the Hollow Earth that looks a lot like the illustration of the disc Pokemon. One more note on this book, and once again, not discussing the legitimacy of any claims, but others have questioned the legitimacy of this story due to the fact that it was at the North Pole when Admiral Richard E. Byrd was supposedly on an expedition to the South Pole at the time. However, some have alternate explanations for this discrepancy, and that goes back to many of the parallels to Heath having references to both the North and the South Pole, and the themes of fact versus fiction. Those references of the North and the South Pole will be coming later in this series. That might be the end of my notes from the missing diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, but that's not the end of the story as it relates to Admiral Richard E. Byrd. You see, in 1991, secret Soviet documents from 1947 were released describing Operation High Jump. This was before the missing diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd was ever published, and in 2006, a Russian documentary was released based on that report. According to these documents and the documentary, Operation High Jump had a deeper hidden purpose. That hidden purpose being to find and destroy a post-World War II secret Nazi base in Antarctica. This seems to connect to many details in the story of the missing diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd and caused me to do a further research in this direction. This leads us to the least comfy part of this video, but in the pursuit of knowledge, truth, and Poke research, I must share that the parallels do not stop with Heath and Richard E. Byrd. There is, in fact, another historical figure who, unfortunately, also has parallels with Heath, and his name is... I'm just gonna say it. He Who Shall Not Be Named. Unfortunately, at the time, He Who Shall Not Be Named was also highly respected and awarded by his peers. He was institutionally funded by the Thule Society, who allegedly accompanied him on an expedition to the dangerous location of Antarctica, supposedly with his beloved dog, Blondie. The story behind the supposedness of his love for Blondie is really sad, and I'm not even going to go into it, but officially he went to Antarctica in order to do research, set up bases, and acquire whale fat, but also, allegedly, to acquire 2 hidden treasures in the form of legendary Antiquitech superweapons, and believed in ancient intelligent beings because, you see, entrances to a hollow Earth and Atlantis are allegedly at the North and South Pole. He allegedly kept journals that were confiscated. He wrote a red book with a lot of extravagant false claims. He also had fits of psychosis, which could have really just been his entire life, as we all know. Allegedly, the Ahnenerbe researched Germanic runes, which look a lot like some of the symbols from Scarlet and Violet. And we already have the swastikas in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet and the missing diary of Richard E. Byrd. The disc Pokémon being a major mystery of the game's parallels with both the disc-shaped UFOs that were allegedly built by the Nazis, and to both Richard E. Byrd and He Who Shall Not Be Named's stories of what allegedly went down at the North and South Poles, and his name starts with an H. I don't know about you, but I sure hope Heath turns out to be more like Admiral Richard E. Byrd than this option. Regardless, for the sake of Poke research, I will now descend into the 2006 Russian documentary titled The Third Reich, Operation UFO. I feel it must be repeated that the information in this documentary is very alleged, but that goes along with the themes of the games. There are also a lot of political parties involved, a whole America versus Russia dynamic, and the ever-presence of propaganda on both sides. So I'm not claiming any of this information to be true, and I will not be spending any time trying to prove or debunk any of it, because that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is how it is a parallel to the events in the Pokémon games. The YouTube channel, The Y-Files, has a great video about the truth of this Russian documentary and of Operation High Jump that I would highly recommend after this video if you're interested. Once again, screenshots from the documentary will be on the left and the parallels to the Poké world will be on the right. Here we go. It starts out talking about the techno-magical, which was already interesting sounding. They say Antarctica continues to attract explorers like a magnet and is bigger than Europe. They begin to tell the story of a secret expedition by German U-boats. Supposedly, a man who was on the expedition named Karl Doenitz later said,
"My submariners have found a true paradise on Earth. At the other end of the world, we've made an impregnable citadel for our fort.
They then speculate that domes of warm air and heated lakes under the glaciers could have created tunnels perfect for the construction of secret bases. Admittedly, without confirmed knowledge of their intentions, the documentary acknowledges different beliefs people had about what Germany was doing in Antarctica, including establishing control over the southern seas, acquiring vast natural resources, such as uranium for the creation of superweapons. Here we go again. Allegedly, the Nazis did create an Antarctic base with the codename 211 that they would visit on a vessel named Swabia, and they go on to suggest that America learned of this secret polar base when they acquired Nazi scientists in Operation Paperclip. For this reason, America brought in the best of the best. And guess who that may be? That's right, Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
At the end of 1946, the famous polar explorer and admiral of the U.S. Navy, Richard D. Byrd, received the order to destroy the Nazi base in Antarctica. But things went wrong. The resistance met by the American squadron even now raises many questions. Admiral Byrd not only reported fighter jets with incredible capacities to Washington, he also discussed an attack on the expedition by strange flying saucers. They emerged from the water at high speed, causing heavy damage to the expedition. On February 26, 1947, a battle took place, which is described by a member of the expedition, an experienced pilot called John Saracen. They flew vertically out of the water in a fury, slipping between the masts of the ships with such speed that the airflow perturbed and dislodged the radio antenna. I didn't have time to blink an eye. The two Corsairs from the Casablanca were slain by some kind of mysterious ray shot from the nose section of the flying saucers. They then dived into the water near the ships. At the time, I was on the Casablanca's deck, and so it is you now see me. I didn't understand these objects were silent as they floated between ships like a satanic beast spitting deadly fire. Suddenly I saw the destroyer, Murdoch, which was about 120 feet away. The flames flashed and it began to sink. Despite the danger, rescue teams and lifeboats were immediately dispatched to the disaster site from other ships. The nightmare lasted about 20 minutes. When the saucers again dived under the water, we evaluated our losses. They were terrifying.
The alleged resistance met by the American squadron seems to be a direct parallel to the dangerous encounters both Heath and the professors had down in Area Zero, with Heath directly mentioning a retreat after a dangerous encounter. In Admiral Richard E. Byrd's story, one of the most talked about and sensationalized aspects is the warning he gave of a threat from the poles after his expedition was cut short. This also parallels to Heath's warning of dangerous Pokémon that might not even be Pokémon. In Violet, the future mammoth paradox Pokémon is the first abnormal and dangerous encounter that Heath has, and in its Pokédex entry in Scarlet, Iron Treads is said to resemble a scientific weapon that a paranormal magazine claimed was sent to this planet by aliens. That's literally the same story as the creation of the German discs. More on that coming up. So far, what we've covered of the documentary was part 1. Titled Base. The second part starts now and is titled On an Urbe. This part makes the claim that, you know what, I'm just going to let them make the claim in their words because it is their claim and their words, but this part's crazy and goes into a lot more that sounds a lot like the plot of Scarlet and Violet. I'll take out as many details that don't relate to Pokemon as possible to try to speed it up, but it is packed with parallels.
Post-war, the Americans recruited German scientists to work in the United States, but were shocked to find thousands of highly qualified Third Reich specialists had vanished and weren't listed as dead. Over 100 submarines had also vanished. It's clear that American intelligence obtained information concerning the fact that part of the Nazi legacy, its technical potential in terms of researchers and scientists, had evacuated from Germany and, naturally, the Antarctic polar zone in the development of disc-shaped aircrafts. How had Nazi scientists managed to make such a technological leap? Ahnenerbe Society, the most mysterious organization in the Third Reich. Even now, the secret services of leading powers hunt for its secrets. But why? It's simple. This was the only known historical structure engaged in the study of the occult and mysticism to have state funding and support. No organization in the world had at its disposal such volume of data or had such influence on the development of occult technology as the Ahnenerbe. Nazi ideology was based on the theory that in the past, there was a powerful Earth civilization with access to the secrets of the universe. Somewhere encrypted and scattered, this higher knowledge was preserved. Specifically, they were tasked with reviving the superhuman in Germany. They were very interested in Atlantis and believed Germany was the rightful heir to Atlantean technological knowledge. Legend says it's where giant ships and flying vehicles were driven by an unknown force. Those search for hidden knowledge, to seek knowledge of the history of civilization, the cradle of civilization, the Onnerb's search began just prior to war start. There's no doubt that Onnerb members knew of an amazing map that was discovered by historians in 1929. The map was created in the early 16th century by the famous Turkish Admiral Piri Reis. The shocking fact is the way the map's detail mirrors the real Antarctic coast. This was 300 years before the continent's official discovery. In his map notes, the Admiral wrote that he drew it from numerous sources, some at least 3,000 years old. But the most puzzling thing was the coastline of Antarctica, which is shown without its ice cover. The map provokes the imagination even today. Here's the verdict of a U.S. Air Force specialist. The coastline was plotted on this map before it was covered in ice. The thickness of ice in this area is about 1.5 kilometers. We do not have any suggestions how this data could have been obtained in 1513. The international experts gave the Piri Reis map a thorough examination and concluded it was more precise than 20th century maps. Seismic analysis confirmed the fact, which scientists until recently were unaware. Some of the mountains, once considered a single massif, proved in reality to be separate islands, as stated on the old map. 70 years ago, one can imagine the impact of the Piri Reis map. It brought hope to the search for the techno-magical heritage of Atlantis. One hypothesis states that Antarctica is the former Atlantis buried under the ice as a result of pole displacement. Once they knew these maps existed, they also realized secret knowledge could be stored elsewhere. But where? Onnerb's secret expeditions began the search for ancient relics and manuscripts around the world, from Tibet to South America. Notably, they hunted for Knights Templar archives, which contain indications they visited America long before Columbus. Apparently, the Templars owned secret manuscripts similar to the Piri Reis map. It suggests they knew something vital about Antarctica. In the occupied territories, SS Special Commando units removed archives and libraries. The Onnerb confiscated libraries of theological faculties and various secret societies as soon as space was allocated. The Onnerb collected a huge library. It is possible the Onnerb learned something incredible about Antarctica. They made the study of this continent one of the main Nazi leadership goals. Actually, the SS were after very specific knowledge. The Grail Cup, together with the Holy Spear, opens the way to world domination. He who shall not be named became aware of this legend before WWI. The spear destiny was safely kept in the Vienna Museum. He who shall not be named possessed the spear in 1938 after Germany annexed Austria. In order to rule the world, he needed the Grail Cup. So combine the legendary spear symbol of the active male principle and of the world's scientific knowledge with the cup symbol of the active female principle and the symbol of wisdom. This is the dominant idea which preoccupied the Third Reich's elite. So fuse the latest scientific achievements with centuries-old knowledge, even in the absence of a rational explanation. For scientific research, the Onnerb employed elite staff, mainly world-famous scientists and hundreds of employees from more than 50 university departments. The Onnerb engaged in the study of maths, astronomy, genetics, medicine, and the occult development of unconventional weapons, plus psychological and psychotropic methods of mass influence. They explored occult science, religious and mystical practices, exploring people's paranormal abilities. One of the main objectives pursued by the Onnerb experts was the use of paranormal abilities to contact unknown beings, or outsiders as they called them. The aim was to obtain from highly developed extraterrestrial and ancient terrestrial civilizations superior technological knowledge. It had already occurred.
Wow. So the Onnerbe funding He Who Shall Not Be Named's polar expedition seems to be a parallel with Heath and the professors both being funded by their academies. The academy seems to be the government of Paldea. They seem to have the biggest volume of data and the great big library right at their center. Supposedly the ideas of an ancient advanced civilization going further back in more ancient times than is currently established by the mainstream is both at the core of the Onnerbe and the phenomena in Area Zero. There are encounters with unknown advanced ancient technology and discs, and I was particularly thrown for a loop when I heard the phrase reviving the superhuman. When watching this in the context of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet games, and when phrased like that, I immediately thought about the artificially intelligent beings created by the professors and of their essence. We even have a story here in this documentary revolving around Atlantis, the alleged codename of the map of Paldea in the game's code. And it straight up suggests that the poles are either Atlantis or an entry to Atlantis. along with the idea that a pole shift could have caused Atlantis to be buried under ice. They speak of a cradle of civilization, like the Garden of Eden, and even talk about how the belief in Atlantis was fueled by a map that was paradoxically out of time because it supposedly accurately shows Antarctica without its ice. We got another admiral, and he's the one who drew the map, based on more ancient sources. Another reference to ancient advanced technology both on Earth and the Poké World. There are ancient ruinous weapons called the Grail Cup and the Holy Spear of Destiny, which to me, the ruinous Pokemon are obvious references both of these and to the suits of tarot and playing cards. They are ruinous objects of mass destruction, and even seem to contain a direct reference to a grail and to a spear or sword. We have Ting Lu as cups, hearts, or water, Qian Pao as swords, spades, or air, Wo Qian as wands, clubs, or fire, Qi Yu as pentacles, diamonds, or earth. Their Pokédex descriptions even imply that their elements are misleading, which I'm still not sure I've gotten them right, because if Qian Pao is swords, then the suit of playing cards referenced would be spades, but it has diamonds all over its body, another suit of the playing cards. Perhaps the ruinous Pokemon represent the connections between the suits of tarot and the suits of playing cards being mixed up, a paradox, parallel, or alternate version of how the symbols could match with each other. When I googled tarot suits, it cites Britannica referring to the suit of pentacles also as coins like Gimmighoul, as diamonds like the jewels on Chi-Yu, diamonds in Suicune's design, and as discs like the disc Pokemon. This connects Suicune to the suite of pentacles, diamonds, terra crystals as jewel stones, and also in that Suicune is said to be the closest in relation to the unknown. Thus also the crystal phenomena in the movie that is also related to the unknown, which also harkens back to the ideas of crystals interacting with prompts from the imagination. We also got Walking Wake, which is a parallel of Suicune as one of the first Paradox legendaries to be released after the game's release, and it was alluded to previously by Heath's Scarlet book. But if you want to know more about the Ruinous and Paradox Pokemon, that's for a whole other video. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make it. Maybe one of the oddest things about this is the focus on New Age concepts, like the divine masculine and feminine, which also become more relevant later in the video, but this is coming officially from the Russian government. They speak of abandoning ration for centuries-old science. The reference to psychological and psychotropic methods of mass influence brings to mind the hypnotic effects of the disc Pokemon. And they talk about unknown beings giving them technology, and beings called outsiders, which directly parallels the story with Heath and the professors getting technology from the disc Pokemon, which is theorized by some in the Pokemon community of Earth to be currently in another dimension, trying to manifest again in ours. This also parallels later sources from Carl Jung. And they say this had already occurred long ago, in the past, like how the professors are trying to achieve what their predecessor, Heath, supposedly able to do in the past. Okay, part 3 is titled Saucers, and it goes like this.
Secret Fool Society members, the Onnerb's predecessor, are gathered at the Alps foothills in a farmhouse near Berchtesgaden. Among the selected were 2 experienced mediums, or contactees as we say today. One of them hides under the mysterious name of Sigrun, the other is Maria Orsic from Zagreb. She speaks of strange things in a trance state. From a civilization in the Taurus constellation, she receives incredible technical information. This knowledge shocked no one. On the contrary, it attracted huge interest as it concerned the construction of an unusual flying vehicle which could alter the flow of time around it. A step towards the dream of the secret society, a time machine penetrating deep into history, obtaining the knowledge of ancient high civilizations. Here you see the picture of an aircraft with the signature of the world-famous German scientist and inventor Victor Schauberger. This received knowledge passes to scientists for translation into clearer technical data for engineering. By 1922, the first model had been built. The device had 3 parallel discs. When brought into motion, the upper and lower discs rotate in opposite directions, creating a very strong magnetic field and anti-gravity effect. If the evidence can be trusted, this design not only floats in the air, but warps the structure of time around it. It is believed this was the prototype of future techno-magical flying saucers based on non-classical flight principles. These super discs were developed by a special technological unit of the SS connected to the Onner. Two basic ideas dominated the minds of senior management in Nazi Germany. First was the creation of the superhuman. The second, very important concept was the mastery of techno-magic energies. This not only included the possibility of mastering nuclear energy, but also, of course, disc-shaped flying devices, for example, creating a fundamentally new type of flying technology. The search for ideas went in all directions. It involved not only mediums and engineers, but also historians. Even before the war, on-and-herb expeditions from Germany returned with hundreds of ancient Sanskrit, Chinese, and other Oriental language parchments. They were studied very carefully. Expedition results are reported to He who shall not be named personally. Some of it inspired the Third Reich leader to such a degree that thoughts of wonder weapons and space flight didn't leave him until the war's end. Designers try their best, but knowing rotation principles and building anti-gravity super discs aren't enough. And engines need it, and they don't have it. The technology is hopelessly behind these advanced ideas. In July 1934, Hitler and the elite of the Thule and Vril secret societies invite the inventor Victor Schauberger to work with them. His legendary implosion engine is capable of producing light, heat, and mechanical motion with only air and water. They needed one thing from him, to create an engine for flying discs. An agreement was reached, and after 5 years, in 1939, a prototype of the Vril disc with Schauberger's engine rose into the air. Here, a rare photograph is preserved, showing a test flight of a winter camouflage disc. Progress with the techno-magical discs was extremely slow with lack of experience and field specialists. They were forced to make extraordinary decisions. To develop the Super Disc Sonderbureau 13 was brought in. This special scientific research unit of the SS engaged in very delicate subjects like the study of unidentified flying objects. Even with top scientists and test pilots, the project came to a standstill, never moving forward again. Everything was top secret. At the end of 1942, a lightly armed flying disc took to the air named the Vril 1 or Jaeger with a diameter of 11.5 meters. It's alleged that before the war's end, 17 types of flying discs were made, but one should be skeptical of such claims. A disc hung in the sky during the Kursk battle. What was it? They did not know. Neither the Germans nor the Russians recognized it. The saucer wasn't made by us, I assure you. Among these disc drawings and photos is a saucer identified as the Haunebu. Data on the discs reads like science fiction. According to descriptions, they used an alternative source of energy, the so-called converter of Hans-Kohler, which required no fossil fuel. It was even planned to take the Haunebu 3-disc type into space. Hard to believe? Who knows? Here's a trophy photo. The strange pilot suit suggests flights were scheduled to take place, if not in space, then at least in the stratosphere. In the seized archives, another mysterious document was discovered. The purpose of this vehicle. Some believe it was designed for long-term space flight. There's another simpler explanation that it was a project for an underwater container, which could be used to transport goods, equipment, technology for the secret bases of the Third Reich, including the Antarctic. According to American intelligence, by the war's end, the Germans had 9 research enterprises developing and testing flying discs. Investigations revealed that 8 of these factories, along with scientists and key figures, were successfully evacuated from Germany. The 9th was destroyed. But the Third Reich didn't have enough time to implement this grandiose plan. It seems by the war's end, techno-magical disc development never reached the industrial production stage. The discs encountered in Antarctica in 1947 were probably not the same discs. Perhaps they were German discs flying on classical principles, ones that had already been developed by the Third Reich, perhaps as a fallback to their techno-magical projects. A few such prototypes had already been made. Some proved themselves well. It was a giant technological leap, and Germany's opponents weren't even close, but far from the kind of flying discs that the Reich leaders had in mind. The reason for this was they were all ventilated-type flying objects. The lift power was created by the silent flameless engine of Victor Schauberger. Reports say the unpiloted disc reached a height of 15 kilometers in 3 minutes with a horizontal speed of 2,200 kilometers per hour. So these beautiful pictures depicting flying discs above an Antarctic base are an artist's fantasy. Other drawings and photos are suspect. They were made to test parts of the disc prototype within certain parameters or were part of presentations to the authorities for funding purposes. The Third Reich's leap in science and technology wasn't accidental. Combining scientific research with an analysis of ancient knowledge brought incredible results. However, the defeat the Nazis suffered was not accidental. For the Grail Cup isn't just a symbol of ancient knowledge, but also a centuries-old moral code. This code, the Nazis deliberately rejected. Many legends and rumors are associated with the discs of the Third Reich. In addition to these stories, there are also tales of German discs flying out of Antarctic waters in 1947. regarding the saucers that emerged from the water, witnessed in the 1940s and nowadays, the recorded sightings of flights or unidentified flying objects emerging from seas, oceans, lakes, etc. I am sure that in 1947, the Germans could not have had such technology, and neither could any country in the world. But if the Germans did not attack the American expedition in 1947, who did?
Wow, again, I don't know about users, but that was intense for me. The idea that Pokemon would take me there was a lot to take in, and kind of shook me up for a bit. I mean, for a while there, it was like every line was directly referenced in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, just non-stop. I also took out a horrific part where it showed some atrocities from World War II, and my heart just aches and goes out to all of the families that were affected by these events. This part does connect back to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet though. I mean, we have now stepped into time machine territory, the device at the center of the finale of the games. The ancient advanced antiquitech that the professors created supposedly at the cost of their own lives. A time machine. And it doesn't stop there. Oh no, it shows drawings and diagrams that look just like Heath's and the professor's and are literally described as parallel discs, like parallel universes and the disc Pokemon. The engines and the ability to float bring to mind Miraidon's technological aspect, engines and ability to float. It mentions nuclear weapons or wonder weapons, which they also say were inspired by stories from the East, like around where the Pokemon games are created, and even has a line that makes extra note of those of Heath's profession being included in these pursuits, historians, when it says, not only mediums and engineers, but also historians. The claim is made that the humans of Germany weren't capable of creating the technology that they set out to on their own. So it must be unknown beings that ended up creating the truly capable disc technology, which parallels to the professor's inability to create the AI without the help of the disc Pokemon. Because they couldn't ultimately do what they intended, the Germans supposedly made an actual big technological breakthrough that used an alternate source of energy. They show rare, unreliable photographs and drawings blatantly discussing their reliability and paralleling to the drawings and photos of Heath's journal. They then say that explanations for their use of the vehicles could be for space travel and underwater containers, which brings to mind aliens mentioned in Occult and Blueberry Academy being mostly underwater. They even speak of an artist's fantasy versus reality, like right out of Heath's own expedition journal. Ultimately, they suggest UFOs are really not of origin from our civilization and that there's a moral code embedded in the use of secret societies and technology in general. Only one last part, Part 4, the Antarctic Portal.
In 1976, Japanese researchers using the latest equipment detected 19 round objects which dived from space into Antarctica and disappeared from the screens. Who were they and where did they go? We've now answers to such questions. In the late 80s, a scientific sensation was created by American astrophysicist Kip Thorne and his colleagues at work. They substantiated the possibility of nearly instantaneous movement in space and time travel. They put forward the idea of wormholes and black holes, all extremely intriguing. According to which, black holes are located at close distances to our planet and take the form of these wormholes. These wormholes can be used for intergalactic and interstellar travel. Other scientists suggest their work has significant practical characteristics, specifically building time travel devices, ensuring intergalactic travel. Kip Thorne concluded that near to Earth, there's an entrance into a wormhole leading to the star Vega. At that time, without a doubt, the Americans already knew very well the way in which the appearance and disappearance of UFOs takes place in the atmosphere of our planet. In 1992, construction began in Alaska. Officially, it was to study the ionosphere and development of missile defense systems. Clandestinely, it was to develop new weapon types, geophysical, weather, and psychotropic. In essence, a massive beam cannon, a type of global microwave oven. In addition to this, there was something else. Today we can safely assume that the main purpose of this station is the search for the entrance to the wormhole, which means the Americans came to the conclusion that in this polar region, the entrance to the wormhole is located. The station's radio waves allow it to determine the wormhole's configuration, then trace it back and find where the entrance and exit is. However, Earth has two poles. What is the role of each in terms of this theory? Well, for example, they use it both for entry and exit through Alaska or use the portal to enter and leave Antarctica, and vice versa. Through Antarctica, the UFO emerges into the atmosphere of our planet, and through Alaska, the North Portal, they leave the planet. The theory of the tunnel effects does not contradict the fact that the North Pole of our Earth is the entrance, and the South Pole of the Earth is an outlet that links our planet with other planets and stars on the level of energetic information. It's possible our pole's properties are used by unidentified flying objects to communicate with other parts of the universe. In any case, it should be a subject for serious study. It's no surprise concerning the well-known fact, namely most of the staff on the American Antarctic stations are personnel of the United States National Security Agency. Employees of American military, technical intelligence, electronic intelligence, and Central Intelligence Agency employees. These categories represent the main research personnel on American Antarctic stations. Perhaps the scientists of the Third Reich also inferred the Arctic and Antarctica were not just Earth poles. Perhaps it's also no coincidence that in Nazi Germany, the Hollow Earth theory, where the poles were presented as gates to the stars, was so popular. Perhaps at this bizarre idea's heart, a vague understanding was reached, something akin to recently discovered wormholes. Along with the possibility of space and time travel, this may be why Antarctica attracted Germans to its shores. The sixth continent continues to keep its secrets. New questions are raised, and over the years, this list hasn't got any smaller. What happened to the research to build flying saucers? Did it stop after the war or continue in secret places around the globe? Is it correct to attribute modern secret developments to all UFO sightings? UFOs were observed long ago, even during the time of Alexander of Macedon. What kind of objects emerged from the water, great unknown beings whom the Germans strove passionately to cooperate with? What is it? Myth? Or real-life existing forces that for thousands of years have conducted their invisible activities on our planet Earth?
So, right off the bat, we have Japan entering the story with a UFO sighting at the pole. They bring up a scientist with a bunch of drawings that look like Heath, Sada, and Turo's. We get into wormholes, which are a big reoccurring phenomenon throughout the whole Pokémon franchise. Now they claim Americans are making psychotropic, massive weapons and wormholes, and that their information is being exchanged intergalactically. They question what's going on at the bases in Antarctica today, and make one last suggestion that aliens have actually been visiting us since ancient times. The end of the documentary wraps up with a lot of good questions there, and you know who thinks they have the answer? Actually, another man with a red book. The Red Book, by Carl Jung, to be precise. Wait, that red book on that desk like that looks and sounds just like the Scarlet book. When I first saw this image, I was gooped, but not as gooped as I would be when I read more details about Carl Jung's The Red Book and his book titled Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the skies. I've never heard anyone mention the connection between Carl Jung's The Red Book and Heath's Scarlet book either. What's even crazier is that his work proclaim to have the answers to these questions, like the questions from the end of the Russian documentary specifically. He even fully addresses the advanced discs and weaponry of World War II. So let's turn another page and unveil connections, other than the obvious being that they are both shades of red. Because there are many explanations to Pokémon to be found throughout the works of Carl Jung. But you'll have to wait for the next video to get more into that, and into the works of Plato, all connecting back to Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. This is not the complete theory I will be presenting. There's so much more, but let me know if you think I'm onto something in the comments or if you think I'm not. Give the video a like if you want to help spread the word, and subscribe with notifications turned on if you want to be alerted as soon as the next part of this series comes out. Thank you so much for watching. Keep calm, carry on, and let's illuminate the true occult nature of our world together.